Welcome to today's webinar. I just wanted to really essentially touch base with everyone and just kind of go a little bit deeper with what we essentially have to say and what we have to set up to basically really protect us when it comes to traveling, which is our right to travel. And so when no one can really impede on that, but unfortunately they use a lot of scare tactics to essentially make us consent to essentially traveling and driving a motor vehicle. And so then that really, then they can contract with us to essentially pay them money. So I just really want to go over that. I know there's a lot of people going to be joining in later with recording. So I'm going to try to be as thorough as I can and cover as much ground as I can and give it about an hour. Okay, we should be done in an hour. But that being said, let's start off with basically what we need to essentially put together. Okay, so this is basically the step two, which is kind of the travel package. So in this package is really setting you up, and so we want to cover as many angles as we possibly can to make sure that we are always protected no matter what. So let's just quickly go down this and just read them out, and I'll kind of explain as to why we do these things and how it gives it more rights. Okay, essentially. So when we essentially renew our driver's license, we'll update it. Let's call it updating our driver's license. All we're really aiming for here is to essentially tick non-US citizen. And so it varies when you try and do this, but essentially it doesn't mean like I had no issues when I did. My wife didn't have any issues either. They just went, okay, great. Now you just can't vote. So what this does, it takes you essentially off in the Department of Motor Vehicles basically contract, because they contract with US citizens. So that's under their realm. That's where they can enforce things. So if you are not a US citizen, then, and you have a documentation that says that, which would be your license after you did this, then essentially that's one less reason why they can come after you. Okay, so also why we do this as well is to update the signature and put a copyright on there. So there's basically two ways you can do it. Okay, just recently I've just come across another thing you can add to it, which is basically you're signing under duress. And so when you sign under duress, it's called the Latin term is V coactus, and for in abbreviated terms, V.C. It basically means you sign under duress. You've been given no other choice. That is essentially what you have to get it, because you need a license for things. So that's another way you can do it. But after that, you're still going to put your entire name with copyright. Okay, so it's going to have your full name. So that way, if you never ever need to use it, always referring to the living man or woman that's basically pretty much signed this under duress because they've given no choice. So we set that up basically so that when you go and get a state national passport, you essentially they always ask to look for your driver's license and say, please sign this exactly the same. Don't you dare sign any other way, but exactly the same as that. So we're kind of rebutting that on the spot. Okay. All right. So moving along, step two. So applying for an ASN, well, let's just say a state citizen passport. Okay. Technically, in their terms, there's no real label that they give the actually true Americans, the part of the general public, because they're only really talking to their employees and their subjects. So we're kind of asking for essentially a passport that is the next best option. And so that's why we call it like a national state citizen. So in the greater scheme of things, this is just something that's biding time until we receive our own passports, which should be very soon. As soon as the banks are up and running, this will be the next thing, because it's our right to travel. So, and we need something internationally that's going to be we're going to be recognized internationally, because when it comes to the international realm, the Americans are internationally protected and owed protection by the Crown, the Pope, everyone like that. So all those treaties basically come back to protecting the living men and women of America. So this will supersede that. But in saying that, we've had some really great successes just recently with getting these passports. I've now been able to draft up a pretty solid letter that goes with your application. And so we've had 2 denials. And then I sent back this letter, and then we have two acceptances. And so one's been under duress, signed under duress, and the other one's been, and so that was a 3-star passport, and the other one came back in 2 weeks, and it was a 5-star. So in any case, as long as you don't have a 1 or 2-star, you're in a pretty good standing with this. But essentially, you only really need just the passport card to hand to the police officer to get you out of stuff. And so some of this latest information is basically do not detain. It says that, and like you could possibly be a domestic terrorist, but they just said leave it alone, give it over to the FBI, and so essentially they let you go anyway. So yeah, so that's kind of what we're aiming for here. But you know, depending on what state you're in, just the credential card is being really sufficient. I know that there's a guy in Utah who's a recording secretary. His brother actually got back into America from Mexico with just this card, not his passport, with this card. So that's pretty cool. So it means we're starting to be recognized on all fronts, and so that's what we're really aiming for. Just leave us alone, let us travel in peace. Okay. Okay. So moving on to step 3. Step 3 is essentially is the regulations Z plates. Now, so these plates are super cool. I don't have mine here in my car. But they're essentially, you know, they're in an international database, and they're even coded to your blood type, where you're born, and so they're unique to you, completely unique, and you use that same regulated Z plates on all your vehicles, all your automobiles, and then yeah, with that too, it doesn't matter. You can even have you know, your partners and stuff drive it as well. Just refers to your private. Okay. Moving on to step 5 is basically surety bond, indemnity bond. So this one here is just for financial responsibility. So we're moving away from insurances, just because insurance basically means it's legalized gambling, and they're just betting on the fact that you will get an accident someday, and they just want you to pay them money just for that. Maybe you will. And so we essentially have what's another page here? It's so if you don't know what that looks like, this is the one I basically previously drawn up, which is, can you see that? No, you can't. Okay, let me stop sharing. So try again. Stop sharing. Share screen. This one. Okay. I'm getting used to this sharing stuff. Okay, so this is basically what I previously found. It pretty much covers you and everything else. Any essentially bill that you get given. So if there's an accident, and so you know someone got injured, or their car, you hit someone, okay, then they would give you this, give you the bill for whatever there was, and then you could basically discharge it with this. It's up to 5 million. So when it comes back to basically the money, everything is dischargeable when you're American, because lawful money, I mean, apart from the new American Federation dollar, there isn't any lawful money, because it's all essentially what they call military script, and it's like monopoly money. So it's not even a promissory note. It doesn't even have a date on it when it's going to be paid out. So it's essentially just proof of their debt to us. It has no substance, no value. It's not backed by anything. So therefore, you can essentially write it off. And so this is what basically is referring to some laws. Now, in saying that, there's new things I need to draft up when it comes to the American assets and the protection. So essentially, Judge Anna has created that indemnity bond, and the indemnity bond covers all American assets. So that means all your personal property, everything like that is covered on the indemnity bond. So I need to basically put that in here. And so under that, it's just covered forever. So that's just an update to it. I need to get onto that soon. But this will be more than sufficient for the time being. You just need some proof of some type of insurance. And so so this is private auto insurance surety bond. So the indemnity bond will cover that as well. I just had to reword it to suit everything. But for the meantime, this is more than sufficient. Okay. Okay, moving on to the next one. Yeah. Okay. So Shuribot, DMV letter asking for MCO. Basically, next step. So we just kind of essentially we want to do the honorable things. So the more times you can ask for things and get a response, the more it builds your case. So in this case, where are they here? Okay, so this one here, it's just a basic thing where you're saying essentially you just asking for the MCO. Like I know you guys have it, you received it. I'm looking to transfer this out of your jurisdiction. Can I please have it back? And so they basically shred the MCO, manufacturer certificate of origin. If you don't know what a manufacturer certificate of origin, it's basically what is created with your automobile when it comes out of the manufacturer. And so they pretty much give that manufacturer certificate of origin to the dealership, and the dealership then essentially gifts that to the Department of Motor, the DMV, and now the DMV owns your car. They had the original title, which is what an MCO is, and then they give you a certificate of title, and that just says that the MCO is out there somewhere and that you don't have it. So therefore, you're renting off the DMV forever. So your title just means essentially jack crap. So the MCO is basically something that I've kind of added to this. And what an MCO basically looks like, just for your own peace of mind. Let me bring this up. Let's see an example. Okay. Zoom. There it is. Okay, so this is basically a MCO, what it looks like. And so if you can see on the side here, it's actually not much bigger than a photograph. So this is the A4 size. The total one is the A4 size. And this one here is just basically slightly smaller, and it's got perforated edges. And so there's ways you can basically fill it out to do this. And so this varies a little bit. It's not a whole hell of a lot of information, but I'm locking down a lot of how to get this. So having this basically asserts your authority of your privately owned automobile, and that the DMV does not have this. So therefore the DMV has no jurisdiction, therefore the police don't have any jurisdiction. So it's something to bring up. And most police officers honestly don't know what this is. But you can always say, for your private automobile at home, you won't have this, but the DMV will have this of your automobile. So it technically means that you don't own your own automobile. The DMV does. That's why you have jurisdiction, okay? Okay. And then just going back to, there we go. Back here, okay. So therefore, that's where we can create our own. So there's ways to do that. I might do a separate video on that later on, just explain how to do that. But I've done it for people too. So it's this is something to add to your portfolio in your car to basically show to people. Now, what to say to police? Okay, now we're getting into the good stuff. We're gonna get to that right after step 9, because step 9 is essentially returning everything to the DMV. Your plates, your registration, and me giving notice to them. So this document here is essentially what's going to be your basically what you're going to read through if you're ever talking to a police officer. So the wording in here pretty much covers you from start to finish, because it's rebutting everything that they might presume to have authority over. And then also giving essentially what do you call it? What do you call it? Forgetting the word. It's going to come to me. But basically, these are all court hearings that have happened, and this is what they've ruled upon. So all this stuff here at the bottom, this notice is amazing. And so the more you can read through this, it literally affirms what you're telling any police officer. And so if courts all over the country, even the Supreme Court, basically say that you don't need a license and you don't need to register your automobile, then what grounds do they have of basically pulling you over for such citations? So this is basically what you're going to have to read out. But Before we get to that, okay, we're going to go through essentially what to basically say. Okay, so what to say. Okay, so this is kind of a rough draft. Obviously, there's going to be essentially things you're going to what not well you're not going to want to say, but if as long as you get through this and really commit a lot of this to memory, you're going to be a lot better place. Even if you have this printed out to actually read off it, then that is also going to be beneficial to you as well. So, so if you have this here, the first thing we need to establish, basically, when any police officer pulls you over, is they have basically two things that they can pull you over for, and that is either an emergency, okay, for an emergency, or if there's actually been a crime, okay. For a crime to actually be, there'd be a crime, there has to be a victim, because that victim would have to stand up in front of a panel of your peers and argue or state they've been harmed by you and that they want remedy. If there's no victim, then there's no crime, okay. I do have somewhere I need to think about where that is. We might cover it later, but the Supreme Court basically says you cannot, if there's no victim, then you cannot say that a code or statute is actually law. And police say that all the time. This is the law. And like, no, it's not. It's a code or statute. So, but anyway, that doesn't apply to living Americans, the general public. So this is how we're going to basically set it up. First and foremost, record everything. You are setting you're literally compiling your case and everything you do. You essentially, so you need to record. So you need to have something which essentially that you can kind of pivot in each way, and that can it doesn't have to kind of get their face on the camera, but at least be recording something. And so as soon as that's set up, then you basically need to establish that straight away. So the first thing is, hello, officer. I'm like, how are you? Hey, you good? Everything good? Okay. Is there some type of emergency? And so because they're going to be wanting to ask for something straight up, like a license and registration. And it's like, whoa. Okay, before we get to that, is there some type of emergency? No? Okay. All right. So, okay, well, in that case, because when they say no, they're like, well, we need to establish some parameters as we move forward, because if there's no emergency, then it needs to be clarity about what the situation is. And so we need to build off that, okay? So just to let you know, I'm also recording you. So for the record, what is your name and badge number, please? And he has to give it that, okay? And so then the more questions you ask, the more you put them on the back foot, because they're taught to intimidate by asking lots of questions for you, but you don't have to answer any of them. But him as a public servant have to answer basically, whatever you ask him, especially when it comes to name and badge number. So thank you, officer such and such. And I'm like, what's the spelling for that? Is that spelling? Okay, what's the badge number again? Just get clarity again and again. Okay, so the more you go in and keep asking questions, the more you're going to have the upper hand always. And so this statement coming up next is essentially what a lot of people say, and it really sets the parameters really quickly, okay? I'm a foreign non-citizen national who is traveling in my private automobile. I am not engaged in the commercial use, meaning commercially acting in any way, use of the highways and byways, nor am I operating in a for-hire capacity as my US dot number. I think I might have skipped the US dot number, but the US dot number, essentially when you get the private not for hire one, says that. So as my US dot number on the back of my car clearly states, I hope you look that up, because that's something that you might need to look up just to confirm that I am acting in a private capacity. So therefore, I'm exempt from foreign law, meaning your law, under Amendment 11 of both the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the United States of America. I do claim my exemptions. I do swear and I do claim my exemptions. And then when you throw it back on them, always ask a question. You did swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, right? And wait. And it's like, what? Well, and if you change it, like, so you swore an oath that when you became police officer to uphold the Constitution, is that true or false? And if he says false or lies about it, I'm like, you can always go, well, then you are not a public servant, and so please go. You get your superior, and if you didn't uphold you didn't swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, then we don't need to be talking. And so, am I free to go? along those lines. Am I free to go or am I detained? Okay. If any of those things go sideways, always ask for superior officer, because they essentially they have to get a superior officer. I'm like, clearly, essentially they don't know how to interpret law, because if they're lying, you need to call them out and like, well, you're actually lying, because police officers have to swear oath to uphold the Constitution, otherwise you wouldn't become a police officer. And then so once they basically said that, you can go in a little bit deeper and ask, okay, what precinct are you from? Because essentially, what's the precinct address? Where you situated? And I'm like, because if you aren't upholding the Constitution and you impede my rights, my guarantees under your Constitution, which you're contracted to do, then I need to make sure that I can find you to hold you personally accountable for your impeding on my rights and my jurisdiction. Okay, so that's why you're going there. So then you can go back and say, are you aware of the two reasons you can pull over a member of the general public? Because, going back there, let it be clear that I'm not a U.S. citizen or citizen of the United States. I'm a member of the general public. I keep the peace, I uphold the public law, and I enforce the constitutions. Okay, so if they're lying, they haven't they haven't sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution, then you have no contract, because their contract is to you, and that contract is the Constitution. So if they aren't swearing to uphold it, then there's no contract. And so are you free to go? Am I free to go? Am I being, and then if they go, well, no, you need to give me a license and registration. Actually, no, I only have to give you that if I'm acting in a commercial capacity, meaning, am I driving a commercial motor vehicle? So, and this is where they're going to go, well, you're driving a motor vehicle. Okay, thank you for pointing that out, but let's just get clear on what a motor vehicle is. And so that's when we can go back to basically reading through the notice to the DMV of what a motor vehicle is, because if they think your automobile is a motor vehicle, then we need to clarify what a motor vehicle actually is. Okay. I'm going to get to that. So this is kind of a rough outline. It could vary in conversation, but the more you kind of read through this, the better it's going to be locked in, so you can rebut pretty much anything they say. Okay. So and basically ask them, do you understand what case law is? Because that's what I was trying to think of before. Case law is the verdicts of court hearings when it comes to traveling. Okay. And so they need to be able to understand that almost every court hearing come to traveling without a license or registration has always backed the private American, and they don't need to have a license and registration. Okay. What does need a license and registration is essentially a commercial motor vehicle, meaning a commercial truck who carries cargo or a bus who carries cargo, people, or product of someone else's that they're for profit. So we're setting them up. Okay. Do you know what case law is? Because we're going to get to that when we read out the essentially the notice to the DMV. So, and then if they don't know what case law, or if they lie about it, just explain to them. You see, my situation is backed up by actual laws and verdicts from court hearings. So is it my right to question your motives? So let's read through the notice of cancellation of registration to the DMV. You're essentially your boss, because the DMV stands for Department of Motor Vehicles. So it's the Department of Motor Vehicles. We needed to determine whether my automobile is a motor vehicle. Let's have a look. Okay. Let's establish some facts. What am I operating right now? And you could just ask them, what am I operating right now? A vehicle? Okay. Definition of motor vehicle as per 18 U.S.C. 31, subsection 3. And so you'll go through with your notice and basically read through. So these things are like a gold. Okay. So the legal definition of a motor vehicle as per 18 U.S.C. Code 31.6 means every description of a carriage or otherwise contrivance propelled or drawn by mechanical power. Yep. Okay. This is driven by mechanical power and used for the commercial purposes on the highways in the transportation of passengers and property, or property and cargo. Excuse me, officer. What way, shape, or form do you think that this is actually a commercial motor vehicle where I'm carrying someone else's property or cargo or something like that? what makes you think this is a commercial motor vehicle? And if they say nothing, it's like, well, then this, by legal definition, is not a motor vehicle. Therefore, it doesn't need to be registered, and therefore, I do not need a license for it. Okay. And then you'll basically go on. It's like, okay. No, yeah. Let's see. Okay. And so, yeah, so here is again. Is there a specific reason that you think I'm acting in a commercial capacity? Do you believe that this is a commercial motor vehicle? And remember, you are on camera. That's why you like essentially you're being video recorded. As I've come to realize after studying your codes and regulation is that you only have the authority to govern over a US citizen who are acting in the commercial capacity, like a commercial truck driver, a bus driver, etc. Well, I'm neither of those things, and this isn't an emergency or a crime. Remember, a crime, there has to be a victim, and so if you can't produce a victim and there is an emergency, then there's no reason to detain me or hold me from going about my way. Am I free to go? Am I free to go? Or am I being arrested? And you can see what they say to that. But it basically says, why do you think I would have to register my automobile? And he's like, well, it's the state law. Okay, all right. It actually comes from this code, 34 USC 12611. It's a national voluntary motor vehicle theft prevention program. Yes, I said voluntary. Okay. Voluntary, okay? So for clarification for your benefit, and just read off the your notice from the DMV again, this code means that you essentially have been forcing people to register their private automobiles under color of law when it was voluntary and never needed. Unfortunately, we have all been strong-armed into registering our automobiles as motor vehicles or commercial motor vehicles, and as public property when they really just are not. This forced registration is extortion. And they go, are you understanding that if you're trying to force me to register my private automobile, that is extortion? Do you want to be an accomplice in extortion? Is that something you want to admit to right now? And so usually they should back down on that. But if they keep pushing it, then we're going to get on to basically the US codes, because essentially they're forcing stuff onto you that they have no authority. But before we get to that, okay. So once they say, well, that's not the same thing, it's like, okay, well, let's just jump on down to essentially all the case law pertaining to this situation, okay? And then just keep going. You can just skim this. I've kind of did it in different colors, and so to help you basically find your place. I'm going to have access for you guys on this too as well with these colors if you want it that way. But essentially, you'll copy and paste this to your own and have it printed in your car. So the right of a citizen, even though you're not a citizen, but it doesn't matter, to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property therein in the ordinary course of life and business is a common right, which he has under the right to enjoy life and liberty and to acquire and possess property and to pursue happiness and safety. It includes the right in so doing so to use the ordinary usual conveyance of the day and under existing modern modes of travel. It includes the right to drive a horse, drawn carriage or wagon thereon, to operate an automobile thereon for the usual and ordinary purpose of life and business. Okay, it does not say anywhere in that to register or you need a license. Next one, okay, between Tech Lines and Danforth and Miss, the right of a citizen to drive on public street with freedom from police interference is a fundamental constitutional right. You can literally pause and say, you swore an oath to uphold the what? The Constitution. Okay, great. Okay, next one. Going on. Next case law. Citizens have a right to drive upon the public streets of the district of this one here, Columbia, or other city of absent or constitutionally sound reasoning for limiting their access. Citizens have a. Did I miss something? It's something. I may have actually deleted something. I'll double check that in a second. But anyway, the use of the automobile as a necessary adjunct, the earning of a livelihood in the modern life requires, in the interest of the realism, to conclude that the right to use an automobile on the public highways partakes of the nature of liberty, within the meaning of the constitutional guarantees. Okay. Again, the right to operate a motor vehicle or an automobile upon the public streets and highways is not mere privilege. It is a right of liberty, and the enjoyment of which is protected by the guarantees of the federal and state constitutions. Huge one. Okay. So again, you're wanting to be asking what laws, please prove the authority you have over me. Because as I'm going through all the case law here, it doesn't say anything about you having authority over me and my situation at this point. So unless you can rebut that, am I free to go? Because they literally have no authority unless you're acting in a commercial capacity, and you have all the proof of proving that. One, you don't have you're not giving them a driver's license, essentially consenting to driving a truck, that type of stuff, and you have a US dot number if you have that, that basically says private and not for hire. And so while the US dot number doesn't apply to me, it's like, well, actually it does, because the United States Department of Transport is the parent corporation of the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. So yes, it does apply to you. So it applies to me as well. That's where they hit our right to travel. So I have something in your realm that literally states that I'm private and not for hire. Therefore, you have no jurisdiction. Okay. The right of the citizen to drive on the public street with freedom from police interference unless he is engaged in a suspicious conduct associated in some manner with criminality is a fundamental constitutional right which must be protected by the courts. Yes. Just like, honestly, I'm like, what does he have to rebut that? So you can just go down and just read that. The more you read stuff like this, the more it kind of sets you up to basically have statements to rebut it. Because if the law states that essentially you're not operating a commercial motor vehicle, then you're driving your private automobile, then it's like he's pulling you over and giving you a citation for how you operate your toaster. It's just ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. So that's what we have to kind of get to. So yeah, there's 3 pages of case law that essentially you can keep going after. Okay. Going back to the notice. What else am I going to say in here? Okay. So, and you can literally say, I basically sent the certificate of title back to DMV, the number plates. And so now I actually own my own private automobile. And so you only have jurisdiction over the commercial one. And so, yeah, the only time you have to give them a license registration if you're driving a commercial motor vehicle. And so then you would be asking, okay, what, show me proof. Anything they say is like, well, that's not the law, or this is the law in state of whatever. Then show me proof. Please show me proof you have authority. I'm like, you wearing a police costume doesn't give you authority over the general public of America. It just doesn't. I'm like, so please show proof, because otherwise I have a right to question your motives. And so please show me proof. So if it all goes to crap, you don't have to say anything. You literally just don't have to say anything. You can say, okay, yep. And you can just give them your ID and like, okay, please go get your superior. And if they force you to basically, try and force you, it's like, well, okay, well, anything I do after this point is going to be done under duress. Under duress means that I'm scared for my life. You have a gun. I'm like, I want to go home with my life. So it's not going to hold up in a court of law. So I don't know why you're threatening me to do that, because you have a gun. But, okay. Hopefully that's starting to make some sense. There's a lot to it. Obviously, there's going to be variations. So the more we can kind of read through basically what I have here, I'm going to put this in a folder. You'll have access to this type of stuff, so you can really get all this information and really let it settle in. Okay, because you're owed Regulation Z essentially to travel. So they probably won't know what that is. But that's your remedy for traveling freely as an American. Okay. All right, so now let me just stop screen sharing. I want to go through, so I have some really cool forms that I found. So I've been doing a little research when it comes to basically what you can hand them. Okay, so if you get all tongue-tied and you can't actually read through it, then you can just hand them stuff. So the more you can hand them, even the kind of better. Okay, you're gonna be set up. So one second. Okay. This is one example of something that can basically that you can show them. Okay, so this is something I have to readjust. But I just found this recently. It's just a very handy pamphlet you can basically give to them, and so it essentially has all the main laws and things that they you know that they need to pay attention to. Otherwise, they're going to be held personally liable. Yeah. Um, and just states pretty much everything we basically said. But you can essentially put your picture here in this part here, and then put the back of your credential card, because that'll be have access to your all your documents on the Land Recording Office. So that's one of them there. Okay, the next thing I want to show you, there's three forms you can basically give to a police officer that I actually found for them to fill out. Okay. So let's start off with this one here. And that one next. Okay. Let me share. Okay. So this is basically a violation warning. Okay. So denial of rights under color of law, because it is your right to travel, and so they're basically not taught a lot of this information. So they're purposely kept in the dark when it comes to a lot of your rights. So they just say they think they're in the right, and then nothing else pertains to the situation. So it's a matter of really hammering it home that these are the things you need to pay attention to. Otherwise, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Okay. This one here, essentially a violation of your denial of rights under color of law. As we go down here, so you can pretty much fill out the stuff. It's like, please fill out your name and address and stuff like that, and the rights that are violated, right to travel. And so, okay, you can fill out all this stuff on the spot if necessary. And then basically, take a photo and give it to them. Because this pertains to the situation. So provides that whoever under color of law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or the laws of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. It just talks about all the things trying to force law onto you. So kind of a huge one. There's two laws, 18 U.S.C. 241 and 242, that we can will essentially read out as well. But this definitely states some pretty heavy stuff. It's like, just so you know, if you continue with your activity by trying to contract me in a commercial way, then you're going to be held personally liable. And so I'm just giving you fair warning, right? I don't let's not inconvenience both of us, because if you inconvenience me by arresting me or towing my private automobile without proper authority, then I'm going to make sure that I invite you to pay remedy for the harm you've caused to me and my property. And so that's what we're kind of leading through here. Obviously, all this stuff is going to be done with love and respect, because most of the time you're going to come across great people. Like, you might be probably good. Okay, I understand. You think that I'm out here, interrupting your day, but I do have rights, and it is my obligation as American to basically ask for why you have authority over me, and what contracts state that you can just do whatever you want and restrict my right to travel, because we need to get very clear about what gives you the evidence, or, what backs you up with substantial evidence that you think you can do those things to me. So let's just clear it up. And so it's just bringing education to the situation. Okay. All right. Next. Share screen. Next form. This is if things start going a little bit sideways. Okay. Notice of inquiry or report of detainment. Okay. Notice the public servant officer. The questionnaire must be filled out by any and every public servant before he can ask the citizen any questions. This authorized is by federal law, including the Privacy Act of basically all these. In the event that you elect not to fill this format, you will fully accept and give your unconditional consent for levy of your public bonds no more than $100,000 US, $100,000 per each 5 minutes, and any portion of thereof that I'm detained, but you and all other present officers, by you and all other present officers. So you can literally be quiet and just hand them this, and they have to fill it out because you don't have to actually say anything. But you can still give this to them anyway because, yeah, this is, just a really cool thing you can basically give to them. It's like, I have to say a word to you. I'm not acting in a private capacity. It's not for hire. This is a private automobile. This is not a commercial motor vehicle. So you have no authority. Please fill out this form. That's all you can really need to say. That's another option you can do. Okay, stop screen sharing. Next one. Okay, the next one. Okay, so this one here is basically if they're threatening to arrest you. So this is kind of like if it goes really sideways, like, okay, like just so you know, these are the things that you need to take into account. Notice to arresting officer within the Miranda warning. Notice hereby given the man or woman you have placed on arrest, have in your custody, or is a declared American state national per 8 USC 1101. He or she demands his or her rights. At times, does not waive any his or her rights, including the right to personal time and property any time. You're hereby noticed and warned that from the time you are detained him or her, your actions have been scrutinized. And then essentially, yeah, read it out. Warrantless arrest. You are not to arrest me unless you have seen me commit an arrestable act or omission. You have, I think, an exit. I don't know what the word is. So this is something you have just found. Circumstances to cause the arrest. If you are arresting me without a warrant, you must immediately take me before a judicial officer or magistrate of a competent jurisdiction to determine whether the arrest was lawful, or if there was a probable cause for the arrest pursuant to the well-established law. This demand must be met prior to booking. The Supreme Court has held that the courts are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If you do not comply with this demand, you shall and will be sued. So yeah, this is just powerful stuff that you just basically need to read through, and then just really commit this to memory, because this is something good. Is like, okay, if you want to go that route, here, make sure all these terms are essentially met and understood. But again, you probably won't ever get to this. If you just be nice and respectful, you should be fine. Okay. All right. So the basic other two laws that essentially I suggest having on a printed out on a card that you can give them, especially when you establish your standing and that you're driving a private automobile, is the 18 USC 241 242, and in your documents. They essentially go over. You see it in quite a few of your documents: the political status, declaration of political status, things like that. So it's in the document, so it'll be in there. But it's always good to have them printed out so you can basically hand to officer. And it's like, if you proceed in your current activity, then you're violating these laws. So do you understand that you're violating these laws? Because I can prove how all your codes and statutes don't apply to me. Can you prove that you can? Can you prove that they do apply to me? Because if they don't, then you're going to be held personally and commercially liable. Okay, so going back to what we were just talking about before. Let me show. This one. We have a lot of information pages. Your browser. There we go. Okay. What to say? There we go. Okay, so I basically condensed 18 USD 241 242. So I'll blow this up a little bit so I can read it. Okay, so this one here is so powerful. If two or more persons conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, or possession, so yes, or district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right. So your right to travel, all right. If they're trying to intimidate you, and your right to travel, if they're trying to threaten you, because to arrest you and impede your right to travel, or privilege secured by him by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, or because of his having so exercised the same, or and basically says two or more persons go in disguise on the highway. Well, they're in disguise. They're in a police disguise, or on the premises of another, with the intent to prevent or hinder his free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege so secured. You have secured your right as a general public, and your rights in the contracted and guaranteed by the constitutions. They shall be fined under this title, or imprisoned not more than 10 years, or both. If death results from the act of committed in a violation of this section, or if such acts include kidnapping, or kidnapping does include arrest, or an attempt to kidnap without probable cause, aggravated sexual abuse, or attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or attempt to kill, meaning if they draw their firearm, attempt to kill, they shall be fined under this title and imprisoned for any terms of years for life, or both, or may be sentenced to death. For years, like that's heavy. That's heavy. So just read through that ever so slowly, because if they cannot rebut this law right here, then they are in violation of it. So they would need to prove that you're a U.S. citizen, which you have all the paperwork to prove otherwise. They would need to prove that you are driving a commercial motor vehicle acting in commerce, essentially like a commercial truck or a bus. They need to prove that. And then, and what else would they need to prove? They're the two main ones. And so please prove all this. Please show me the law that supersedes the constitutional guarantees that I have a right to travel. And then we read 242 and the other one as well. So yes, that is a lot of information, and that's why you have to kind of inundate yourself with all this information. There are other things as well. I came across basically a kind of well set out travel package that can kind of go in your folder. So when you're doing a folder, you're essentially going to have basically a folder with all the information in it, and as you go through, so all your recorded documents, that type of stuff, and it goes through. So you can pretty much go through all that, and you can just have it there, and then essentially just go, okay, look, here's my declaration that I'm actually I changed my political status, so I'm not a U.S. citizen, and you can just read it out, and then on the back of it, you'll have essentially your notice to the DMV. Okay, this is what I sent to the DMV. And such date. And so we're going to read this out together just to prove that I do not have to have a license and registration. And then once we get through that, we're also going to look at all the case law as to why I do not need a license and registration. So then you need to prove and rebut all that in order to give me a citation or do anything to me, because otherwise you're impeding my right to travel. And then essentially it's like your oath to uphold the Constitution, you swore that. So if you don't uphold the Constitution, then you're in breach of contract against me. And so based on 18 USC 241, you can be held personally responsible for that. You cannot hide behind a badge with these laws. That pertains to you. Out of respect and love. Okay. Woo! That's a lot of talking. So do we have any questions? I know there's a lot more people going to be listening to this on the back end, but just for the people that are tuned in, do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So does it matter if you really have a commercial license? Like I have a CDL license, or it doesn't matter because they're not even. If I'm driving my own private automobile, they don't even need to even see that, right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so even commercial CDL truck drivers, when they finish work, then they're operating their private automobile. They do not need to show anything because they're acting in their private capacity, and that's where the your rights basically are. So um, the only reason why essentially commercial motor vehicles are policed so heavily, and why they try and make your automobile into a commercial motor vehicle is because it's a federally regulated industry. So when the original contracts were drawn up, they made it so, okay, you guys are going to regulate alcohol, firearms, tobacco, the sale of all those. And then you're going to regulate interstate, like international commerce. So from state to state, which is it basically refers to international, like commercial activity. You're going to regulate that. And the other reason that is why is because you have drivers driving a commercial motor vehicle, and it's like with big stuff on it, so it can be dangerous for the private American. But as soon as you leave that, you do not have to give your CDL license to them because you're not actually on the job. So you're working in private capacity. That's why you would hand them basically your credential card or your passport card. And so that gets you out because when you hand over your passport card, your license, you're consenting that you are a driver who's driving a commercial motor vehicle. Then they have free authority to basically fine you or do whatever they want with you. If you don't give that consent to them, then you haven't consented to any of their laws, and they're only their codes and statutes, and they can't do anything to you. And so that's when they're in breach of contract of the constitutions. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if I'm going to renew my license, I can still do non-citizen with the same commercial
Yeah. So
license.
if you're maintaining your CDL license to drive trucks, then you kind of have no choice. You can go VC. You can write V.C, which is V coactus, which is signing under duress. So you have no choice. Eventually, like that's gonna be something that won't be regulated anymore. As soon as we have all our standing and our state assemblies up and running, that'll be something that will be kind of regulated, but they'll ease off on the corruption because they've used that umbrella to basically extort the general public. So it has to be trimmed down big time. So yeah, you can do that, but we can talk more about that as you renew it at a later date. A bit more information. Just got a few more questions I need to ask about your situation. But yeah, you should be fine. You should be able to just do a VC before you autograph your name. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, where the rubber hits the road, pun intended, we need to stand up our common law courts. So every county has to basically stand up its court. If you have your common law court stood up, then all this goes away like that. Like so, as you correct your status, really think about honestly nominating yourself to be a Jural Assembly member. That way, when that's set up, that's where the power is undeniable because we have superior concurrent general jurisdiction over everything, and that's when you can claim remedy back. So if a police officer does anything to impede on your rights or hurts you or harms you under common law, and when you have your common law court set up, he is screwed, like absolutely screwed. And so we're kind of waiting on that. At the moment, all we can do right now is essentially lien them, commercial lien. So they would never be able to, get a run their credit ever again. So they can't get a loan, can't get a phone, anything like that. It all goes out the window because their credit rating will be just null and void. That's how we're kind of fighting back at the moment. So long as they know, like respectfully, if you keep with this course of action, then I'm gonna and you inconvenience me, then I'm gonna send you a basically a bill for basically the inconvenience, and that's going to be in the form of a commercial lien. And so you will have to then pay me remedy because you haven't backed any of your actions up with law, essentially.
Gotcha. And I have one more question. We did apply for the USDOT number. We got so far in, all the way to the end, and there wasn't where you can go to next. The next wasn't highlighted, and then after it went away, the screen went away, and then it tried to make me start over. But they did assign me a number.
Yeah. So this has been an update. This is a very new update. That number is private and not for hire, so don't worry about it. So where they shot themselves in the foot. So prior to a month ago, basically my instructions for the US dot number, the US dot number is a verbatim, but now they did an update and they worked out that all these people were getting this private not for hire, so they couldn't completely get rid of it, but what they do, they sell your information. So they have to give a dot number to be able to sell the information so that people can hound you and like essentially, that's why you get all the emails. So that dot number is yours and it's private and not for hire, still exactly the same. So I will give you, sorry, what?
Oh, I was saying, but they didn't send like a sticker or anything.
That's okay. No, they won't. They won't. It's just private, not for hire. So you will have to basically, you will have to order a sticker yourself.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and so you can. I mean, mine is big and obnoxious. I think I go to my on my where is it? Yeah, no, I can't find it. Too many photos. Anyway, so mine is big. You don't need to have that big, as long as it's somewhat visible on the back, and it's literally. It's just proof that you're in private and not for high capacity. But yeah, so they kind of deleted the last part and saying that you've been issued with a private US dot number and it's free. They just kind of deleted it, but you still get it because everyone has your US dot number because it went through the system. So they'd already issued it to you. They just trying to get out of I can't use it now. So they've done an update to it. So what everyone comes, all those spam emails come, they have your dot number. So that just take that and then just go get a sticker made out with that dot number and it's your private, not for hire. So you already answered the questions. They're saying it's private, not for hire. So you don't have to worry about the last little bit.
Gotcha. Okay. Because, we've been getting the emails and phone calls about compliance.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
Yeah. So you can answer those back too by saying, I'm private and not for hire if you want to. If you pick something up, it's like, well, you need to do this. You need to with the US dollar. Like, no, I do not, because I am private and not for hire. So there's no stipulation about what I need to do with it. I didn't do anything. Normally they'll just go, okay, thank you, goodbye, because they realize that they're not in the commercial realm, so therefore they can't do anything. But yeah, you get spammed. Yeah, that's just part of where they hid your right to travel in the Department of Transport.
Got it. Thanks.
Sweet. Anything else? Anyone else?
Yes. Can you hear me, Aaron? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Yep.
Hey, okay, so what the cop is going to do is he's going to say, he's going to sit there and listen to that for a minute, then he's going to say, all right, man, you know what? I don't care about any of that. Today I'm going to write you a citation for blah, 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 whatever it is.
Yep.
And you can take this to the judge and you can discuss this, in front of the judge. I'm just going to do my job and write this citation.
Yeah.
What would you do at that moment?
Yeah. So, basically you would say, okay, so a citation is a offer to contract with you. And so that's why I have 72 hours to rebut this contract. I do not consent to this ticket, but you can give it to me if you want. I'm not going to sign it. Or if he makes you, force you to sign it, it's like, okay, well, I'm signing this under duress, V.C. and then your name. And so it's like, great, just give it to me and then just rebut it. So it's super easy. You just got to send it to the clerk of the court. But, and so a part of the packet, like a part of the, information, which we didn't get a chance to get to today, but we might do another day, but just on that. And so just rebut it. So worst case comes to worst, whatever. Get the ticket and then just rebut it. So it's super easy to rebut. You just have 72 hours. As long as you send it back to the clerk of the court or their address on the back of the ticket, then it just goes away, dismissed, done. It's super easy.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll probably do another one just on what to do after you get a citation, because if it all goes to everything goes to crap, so just give me the ticket. I'm going to sign under duress because I'm scared for my life. You can always say that, and they go, whoa, they get all touchy then, because you're like, I don't know, they don't like when you have to you act under duress, because that means they just lost their case essentially. So okay, you know what, you have a gun, sorry, yeah, no, give me a ticket, whatever, I'll handle this in court, and then give notice to them. So yeah, I mean, essentially, the more you can ask for their details, because you can hold them personally responsible, the better. So long as you get past that cornerstone. And then just go, okay, you know what? Hand them some other idea. Like, I don't need to have your driver's license or anything. You can give me a ticket. I don't care. That's fine. So yeah. Other than that, I think that's about it. If you don't have any more questions, I'm gonna leave it there before we get too long. Thank you for everyone joining in, and then everyone on the replay. I'm sorry again for changing the time. Just kind of got messed up with the whole family thing. But it's going to be here as a resource, so you'll have access to this as soon as I reload it. Look back on it, and then I'll also set up the folder to share as well, so you have access to all those documents. And so just really inundate yourself with this type of information, because the more it goes into your brain, the more you can basically you'll just know what to say as it goes out, and based on the situation and how much heat you're getting, or if they're open and it's like, okay, look, I'm not trying to mess up your day. I'm like, these are my rights, my constitutional guarantees, and I have a right to ask for why you have authority over me and over my constitutional guarantees. So when it comes down to that, like, let's just establish, just work it out together. Because if you're not harming anyone, then why are they trying to pull you over? Essentially, right? So I'll start compiling all that, because I think this is the very big point that we need to start protecting all of us, so that we feel safer when we're traveling in our private capacity. So I'll set that up for you guys and share all that information with you in the video very shortly. But I wish you all an amazing day, and I'll talk to you all soon. Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.